The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Uh-oh, Kev's in trouble. What's that song? Da-da-da-da-da, something double. Oh, I can't remember the song.
There's my bubble.
That's the one. Not double. Why are you in trouble, Kev?
Well, it's a relatively long story, but I'll keep it very short.
Settle in, everybody. Do we need relatively long story music?
What's that one he used to do, the love on Radio 2, My Story, My Sad Story?
No, you mean our tune on Radio 1 years ago.
Yeah, do it our tune. That's about it.
No, that's copyright.
You should do the theme from the horse racing, in my case.
Oh, really? I don't know what we have. I mean, I've only really got a sort of a faux Stranger Things thing, which is this one. But, I mean, it's not really a spooky story, is it? It's a you're in trouble story.
That does sound a little bit like horses hooves running over my head.
Does it? Okay, well, I'll keep it there then. Why are you in trouble, Kev?
So, well, Rose is well into her horses, and so is Gemma. Yeah. And Gemma's always, when she was young, she always had ponies and stuff. And we currently, Grandmama rents Rosa a horse, which is very kind of her. And the horse is called Casper, and he's very lovely, and he lives in a stable.
Is he Casper the ghost? Or bring on the ghostly music?
Casper the horsey. So what's been happening is that they are desperate to get their own horse, Gemma and Rosa.
Oh, this sounds like an angling story.
Which means land and stable fees and vets and one of those things that you travel around with on the back of your car that says horse on the back.
Horse box.
Yeah, all of these things. And
God,
so I've been pushing back on it quite substantially.
I bet.
Because it's going to cost quite a bit.
Yeah, there's a pandemic on, Gemma, for heaven's sakes. You can't be buying horses.
So I was public enemy number one in the house.
I bet you were, yeah.
You know, I'm like, we've got guinea pigs, we've got 2 dogs, we've got Albie costs us a fortune. Where are we going to get the money for the blinking horse and the horse's hay and everything else and the hooves and you know those metal things they stick on their feet and those things they stick in their mouths and all that stuff. So there was tears at bedtime.
There's not a nice ending to this story then?
Yeah, well, it's kind of nice because in the end, I kind of thought, actually, you know what? I'm not very nice about this. I was wrong. I was very wrong. So this is a public note of affection and apology to my entire family.
So have you now got a horse, Kev, and a horse box and everything?
Not quite. It's coming. It's coming. I think it's coming. So yeah, and we're all very excited now.
I bet you are. Well, I mean, if it all.
I can't wait for getting up at 6 o'clock every morning before school and traipsing over there and breaking the ice on the water.
That won't be you. That'll be them doing that, won't it? That's not going to be you. Or will it?
Well, I want to get involved in that. But, actually, the thing that excites me the most about it, I've just been thinking about this, is pictures, taking pictures. I finally have something that I can take pictures of, which isn't going to say to me, don't take a picture of me.
That's true. And, well, I'll give it a couple of months, and if it all goes wrong, you can turn it into glue.
The FujiCast.
Nay.
You did not say that. Have we got a whole sound effect? Let's no, I'm afraid we haven't. No. We might have to get one though if it's going to be a constant feature of this show now and your photography.
Yeah, we should have a competition and see what it's going to be called.
Yeah, what a good idea. Although I'm sure really that I'm sure Rosa and Gemma would rather choose the name than, because it'll end up being called something like 35mm or something. I don't know. It's going to end up having a photographic name that's got nothing to do with the emotion of having this beautiful horse.
I think we should just call it bloody expensive.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, I'll drink to that. Right. Well, welcome to the FujiCast. You and your questions about horses this week from our electronic mailbag, and of course, also through the FujiCast private Facebook group that you're very welcome to become a part of, or you can send it the old-fashioned way by mail to click@fujicast.co.uk. If you are not a Fujifilm shooter, don't worry, it's a big community. Whatever flavour you shoot, you can talk about anything here, including how to stable your horse. And of course, after today's show, some of the subjects get picked up in the private Facebook group, so you can trot along there. I'm trying my best here, Kev. You can trot along there and leave a couple of questions. And today we've got a very special guest on the show. It will be Andreas Georghiades. for Ask Andreas.
Yes, because there has been a whole load of announcements this week from the good ship Fujifilm.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Are you saying no more? That was like a tease, wasn't it? There's
Well,
been
no.
a whole load of
I mean,
announcements.
it's out now, isn't it? So, but I can't remember exactly what it was. 27mm. That's the thing I've got. I've got the new 27mm on my camera right now.
Yeah. Well, are you going to do some sort of YouTube film on that? You will do, won't you?
Potentially. There's not a lot for me to photograph at the moment. I suppose I could start photographing bloody expensive soon.
Yeah, bloody Now, normally we have a bleeper on that, but I think you're just going to have to accept that bloody expensive is going to be the name of the horse, and I can't be bleeping that out all the time. No. But if it was called fucking expensive, then we'd be on the bleep machine all the time. Right. Who wants to start with the questions this week, Kev?
You go first.
Okay, I've got a couple of quick firers here.
Go.
There's a comment and a question. Comment here from Nick Osborne. Thanks as ever for the smashing content and good chaff, which is the Dickensian word for banter. I actually thought that meant something else, but let's move on. Quick query about Adobe Lightroom and specifically lens corrections. For some reason, when I've imported Fuji files into my Lightroom on my iMac recently, the lens correction panel's not identifying the correct Fuji X lens, or indeed any lens. If I try to search through that, this was supposed to be a quick-fire comment. I've picked up the question instead. It's all right, we'll go with it. If I try to search through the manual tab, some lenses appear, but the list is incomplete. All this means can't actually enable profile corrections at present, despite Lightroom knowing exactly which lens I've used. I've contacted Adobe support, and apparently this is a known bug, so he's now contacting Kevin support.
Well, Adobe support are wrong.
Are they?
100% wrong. Wrong. There you go.
Have you got?
Oh, you want some more information?
Yeah, I'd like the answer, really.
It's not a bug because all of the Fujifilm lenses, with the exception of the X100 lens, have the calibration built in, have the lens correction built into the lens.
Right.
And so it's not recognized in a Lightroom because it's done automatically. Don't need to do it. You do not need to do it.
Okay.
The only one you'll see in there, I think, from memory, is the lens for the X100. But even that, I think, was only up to the X100S. F and V, I don't think need it. So yeah, don't worry about it. Just ignore that bit on your Lightroom. Ignore it and never speak to that person at Adobe support again.
They're very nice people there. Nick says, P.S. I can only apologise for having such a horribly dull British name. Next time I contact you, I might have to invent an exotic-sounding pseudonym to make me sound more interesting. Oh, Nick, it's fine. There was. Shall I do the quick question as well?
Go.
Christoph Modot. Hello, quick question regarding video and how to record sound for video. I've got an LSP4 from Olympus and a lavalier microphone to control noise around me, so I record in mono. Should I be using something else to record in stereo? So it'll be more noticeable for YouTube videos. Well, the very simple answer to that is we actually speak in mono. So, no, you don't need to worry about that at all. I don't speak in stereo. Do you speak in stereo, Kev? Are you more on one side than the other side? See if
I speak the same as you. I speak the same as you.
Mono.
Mono.
And actually, if you're putting it on a timeline such as Adobe Premiere, I keep getting told I'm saying this wrong for our stateside audience and Canadian audience and Australian audience who say Premiere differently, apparently. But if you're using it in something like that, it'll sort out your mono and your stereo tracks anyway. So don't worry about it. Be happy in mono.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yours, Kev.
Okay, so I am digging into the Facebook group, the thread, questions for the show thread, which is, we're coming to the end of it now, so keep going, people. I have a quick one. This isn't a question, actually. This is from Alex Fredriksson in snowy Austria. And actually, this is quite interesting, and I think she's onto something here. She says, an interview idea for you, Kevin. How about interviewing Neale? She means you.
Nobody wants
I listen to the show every week and to the Photography Daily every day, and I've got to know the stories and work of many photographers. However, through Phil Payne, through Phil Payne. Now we know Phil, don't we? Because Phil is the man who stole that microphone all those years ago when he was in America and then gave it to you.
Yeah, I've got it here.
And Phil, of course, has got an Emmy or a Grammy or something for his filmmaking. Anyway, she goes on to say, through Phil, I've discovered that there is so much more to Neale than we know, and I'm sure he'd make a brilliant guest.
Here's the microphone, by the way. It's an RE15 that was stolen from... it's been used on things like aircraft carriers. I think this one goes back to NARM days. You can literally smack a nail in with it. It's that tough. And yeah, I've got that. I'm the very proud owner of that. I'll just pop it back in there next to the 35mm that I got from someone.
So there you go, folks. If you want me to interview Neale, and I've actually said this to him before, and he's always been very kind of quiet about it. So if you want me to interview Neale, put the thumbs up in the Facebook group, or send us an email or a carrier pigeon or whatever, and we shall do it.
Carrier pigeon.
I've got some great questions to ask you. Brilliant ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember that time we went out in London?
do you know, it's always a bit fuzzy when we go out in London for some reason.
Yeah. Anyway, that's one. So yeah, I think that's a great idea, Alex. Yeah, well done. Thank you.
Moving on swiftly, Nick White. This was a comment. Have you seen the new documentary featuring ex-White House photographer Pete Souza on Amazon Prime called The Way I See It? My wife and I were fortunate enough to have seen Pete talk a couple of times at the photography show. Oh, that would have been terrific. He is an amazing guy and wonderful photographer. He was very generous with his time. Talked to us for a bit and very kindly personalised the signing of his latest Obama book to Catherine. And also signed an RPS magazine article for me. We both felt incredibly lucky to have met Pete and hear his behind-the-scenes stories, etc. Brilliant documentary. Have you seen that? I've not seen that. I know of it.
I haven't actually. No, I will watch it. Yeah. No, I haven't watched it.
Nick White from Brizzle. That's one to watch. I tell you what a great opportunity. Can you imagine being told that? You know, Pete, do you fancy following round President Obama for the for the next 4 years or so? Yep. Where do I sign? God, that's incredible opportunity.
Can you imagine? I don't know whether did you just get assigned a president? I'm sure Trump had one. He probably had many, but that would be interesting
Probably
to see the pictures of that.
No? I mean, nobody lasts more than a few minutes in that office, didn't they?
Don't be rude.
I've still got it. I'm sorry, Donald. I don't know where you are now.
Don't be rude.
Well, there we go. Just for old time's sake. Now I'll delete it. Donald who? That's showbiz. Well, is it your turn for a question? It is.
Yeah, I have got one. It's quite a long one. So this is from Jeff Petri. And he says, I've been a photographer for years. And he writes years in capital letters. So it must be a very long time.
Yeah.
But there's one thing that I continually struggle with, and that is culling my images. For example, I went for an 8-hour drive in the country, stopping to photograph all kinds of various things. When I got home, I loaded the images into Capture One and started the review process. But all the images looked like lumps of clay. I know that there's a lot there, but each image needs some kind of tweaking or massaging, increasing, decreasing exposure, brightness, etc., before I can judge the image, as I need to see its potential. If I've shot a few hundred images, this can take a good long while as I compare similar shots and decide between keepers and rejects. It might take me a few days to play through the culling and outgoing. I don't spray and pray when I photograph. I'm very deliberate and work the scene, varying my composition, exposure, aperture, lens, focal length, angles, height, shutter speed, etc. Because of the dynamic range, many images need the shadows opened or highlights managed. I might need to adjust the keystone before I can tell if a crop works. I often need to do these things before I can see the image. Meanwhile, I've gone out again for a few times, shooting and capturing more images, falling behind on the previous photos. Thoughts, suggestions? How do you make it through your culling? Not to mention post-processing.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's a certain amount of experience involved in this, isn't there? And I'm being cautious here because I don't know how much experience you have. Did you say how much experience? I don't think you did. But
Years.
Well, I mean, that's enough experience. But I don't know. I don't feel I need to look at, unfortunately, I don't think I need to look at an image in this sort of detailed manner before I decide whether it's going to be one for the chop or not. I think surely you just go by what you see in your image, whether it's, if it's a wedding image, it might be something that's emotionally charged, that there's good composition. I don't think I've ever thought, I wonder what that's going to look like in the shadow and highlights. I don't believe that's the right way to cull.
Yeah, okay. I think that the images are subjective, but I would say to every single person, don't do your culling in your editing software. just don't take all of your images into Capture One in Jeff's case.
Oh heavens, no.
Do your culling beforehand, whether that's in Photo Mechanic or in ACDC or in Adobe Bridge or there's various other free culling type pieces of software out there. But do it off the preview, so you can just look at the images. You can look at the embedded preview that will come up in something like Photo Mechanic much quicker than taking them into the editing software.
Yeah.
And also, then you're not cluttering up your catalogs with all of the images that you decided not to keep. And so that's my suggestion. And we've talked about Photo Mechanic millions of times.
I know you're taking away the temptation as well, aren't you? To start thinking, well, okay, I like this one. Let me just tweak a little bit on it first, see if I like it more, because that could take forever, as he's correctly identified. I think Photo Mechanic is just a brilliant tool and so quick as well. I mean, I have it loaded up on the laptop that I take to events, and I never believe in any dead time, particularly at a wedding. So, for that sometimes 2.5 hours before they get to speeches, I use that as a perfect time to cull through Photo Mechanic, and I've done 2/3 of the job by the time I get home that night. And I think, and you just whisk through. Does that look right? Is the emotion right in that one? Are their eyes closed in that one? Is the movement wrong in that one? Is rule of thirds, or however you like to compose your images? Does it work for that, but not for and just. And the great thing about Photo Mechanic as well is it's not destructive. I mean, when you choose to keep something, that's a much better way than when you choose to let something go, isn't it? So you're just choosing to keep, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. And it's different, different styles of photography and stuff. In terms of, if you're a fine art photographer or something, you can still, and you need to know the details and the shadows and stuff. You can still use something like Photo Mechanic. You can use the histogram to kind of get a good idea of what's in there. And you can do some basic kind of adjustments as well in terms of cropping. All of that stuff you can do in Photo Mechanic too. But yeah, I think we're both kind of sold on not taking all of the images into the editing software. That just slows everything down. Yeah.
Adam Belcher has written in. Adam B. Hello, both. Really enjoying the episodes. It's great for my mental health to hear your thoughts and reflections upon life. We should start charging then. That's a new business for us. Kevin Neale's counselling service. What about that?
Yeah.
You could do that in your new studio. Have you got a spare room that we could do that in?
Yeah.
Because it's a huge expanse of space now that you've got, isn't it?
Well, I haven't got it yet, but I will have it. Yes, huge.
Haven't you signed for it now, though? Isn't it yours?
Well, the legal stuff's been done. It's going through.
Yeah.
Yep. So, put it this way. The solicitors have had some money off me, as always.
Yeah. Well... that coffee shop that we used to go to, I think that's, by the way, that I just throw this one in while we're all getting buildings and stuff. I'm not sure, but I think it's gone. I think the owners have decided, can't be doing with this, and sadly they've gone. But all the kit and everything's still in there. Would you like to have, that idea we had for a coffee shop, black and white?
Yeah.
With all the pictures on the wall and stuff, all black and whites and stuff? What do you think,
I think we should call it something else. I've decided we should call it Mocha and Monochrome.
That's good. I like that just as much. There we go. Mocha and Monochrome.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody else, unless they're into photography, they'll think, why is it called Mocha and Monochrome? Oh, I get the Mocha bit, but Monochrome? I don't get that at all. Let's go to Costa.
Well, that's the dream, though, isn't it? A coffee shop, like a coffee shop that actually earns money, and you can use it as a base for art as well.
Well, there was a guy not last year, I forget, I didn't work last year, a couple of years ago at a wedding, who had, what do they call it, tuk-tuks. So he's got like a small fleet, I think, of tuk-tuks. Adam, we will get to your question in a second. And he just has, it's an expensive coffee thing on the back of the tuk-tuk, and he takes it to weddings, and they're always at sort of expensive marquee type weddings, and he just sticks the coffee tuk-tuk. And this particular wedding, I think there were two. There was, because it was quite a large wedding, and I was speaking to him about it. He said, it's the best business I've ever had. I think he used to work in the city, and he said, I just couldn't do it anymore, and somebody offered me a tuk-tuk, and I took it to a festival, and it went so well, I just built a business out of it. He goes home, and he's done. We go home, we've got thousands of hours of editing.
Yeah. Yeah. Good
So, coffee shop, nice idea. Anyway, so where were we? Oh, yes, hello both. Really enjoying the episodes, blah, blah, blah. My questions are, Kev, will you do an X100 review on F16 at some point, please? I'm really considering selling my X-T3 and 35 f2. I've always been a one camera, one lens sort of guy. Had all sorts of previous X100s from the first version. I'm missing it. I'd like to know your thoughts on the new X100V Mark II lens and how it compares to the other 23mm offerings. Well, of course, the X-T3 and 35 f2, by the way, totally different focal lengths. So I'm not quite sure why those two have been. I mean, if it was an X-T3 with a 23, that would make more sense, of course, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to answer the question about the X100V review, probably won't be a review when I finally get around to it. Probably be more like a how I set up my X100V and what I like about it. Yeah. And the reason for that is because I didn't get, when I do reviews for cameras, I like it. It has the most impact and the most interest to people when the camera is launched. And of course, I didn't get my X100V until way after it was launched. And there's a load of videos and reviews and all that kind of stuff by the people who test the cameras beforehand. They're usually done on the day of announcement and stuff. So it's a big old job to do a proper review video. Big old job, like a week. And I feel kind of like, well, I can't really bring anything to the show now. It's all out there. Everything's out there. I can tell you what I think of it. So I will do something about the X100V, but it will definitely be more along the lines of how I set it up and why I like it. And here's some pictures.
I know what you mean about the review things, but there is another way to look at this, because I made an X Pro. I fully intended to get hold of an X Pro 3. So I made an X Pro 3 film, and it was a kind of here's sort of an introduction to this camera, blah 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 blah, and then I intended to make a proper sort of full report on it, and then I didn't end up getting the X Pro 3, sadly. And somebody wrote to me recently, said, you never did your X Pro 3 follow-up. And I wrote back and gave them the reasons, and they said, well, it's just as interesting to know after a while. Obviously it doesn't apply to this case because I didn't end up getting one, but had I got one, it's quite interesting, I think, to hear a year on photographers that have been using it, not just for the review, but to actually hear the real use for a year. And I think, because cameras are often, I still know people that buy an X-T2, etc., an X Pro 2, and look at me with my X Pro 1. It's quite interesting to know how people get on with it a year later or 2 years later, perhaps.
Yeah, I agree, and that's kind of what I'm on about. It's not, but it wouldn't be a review. A review, in my mind, a review of a camera is, these are the new features. This is why it's different to the previous one. This is a picture of it. This is a nice scrolly video footage. This is some footage of me making a cup of coffee beforehand. And this is me on a motorbike in the countryside with a drone filming it. You've got to do a good YouTube video review. You've got to insert a whole load of irrelevant B-roll shit. That's got to be done first and foremost, and that's what's going to get you your hits. You forgot you need the one wheel. You need to do a one wheel bit. Yeah. That's right, yeah. I need to grow a beard and get a check shirt and have loads of close-ups of me looking through the camera. Yeah. I think I know who you're talking about. I think he does them well, though. I like them. They're all like that. Yeah. There was a second part. Even the females are like that. They grow a beard. That's it, There's a second part of the question. This is that was Kev's one. This is my one. I'm really interested in how you adapt vintage lenses, Neale. Would you consider doing a discussion on how you go about doing this? What to look out for and what you need? Well, to be fair, I didn't really look out for a load of vintage adapters for my one single vintage lens that I use, although I am looking for a wider one now, and I'm seriously thinking about getting a second X Pro 1 body, so I've got a wide and my effective 50mm length on it. So I think the adapter was sent to me with the lens, so I'm not quite sure what to suggest, but there are lots of different adapters, aren't there, Kev, that you can... Yeah, the main go-to manufacturer for adapters, I think, is Mitakon. You can usually find something on Mitakon. I don't know where mine... Oh, it's up in the house. I think there's lots of them. You do need an adapter, of course, to fit it, because they won't, these legacy lenses won't be X mount. So anything, whatever the mount of your legacy lens is, you need one of them to X mount adapter. And you can stack adapters as well sometimes. So if you can't quite find let's say it's a Mitakon, not Mitakon. Let's just say it's a Tell me a manufacturer of an old lens. Quick, come on the spot.
Praktica.
Praktica, let's go with that.
Yep.
So let's just say you can't find a Praktica to X mount lens mount. You perhaps could find a Praktica to Canon, whatever their mount is called, M mount or something, and then maybe you can find an M mount to X mount and stack them. You're going to lose out on the resolution a little bit and quality, but you can do it. You can stack it.
You wouldn't really want to do that too much, though, would you? I mean, I've just got the one adapter between that and my my Yashica lens. Yashica.
Yeah. And funny enough, I was just posted on the Facebook group just before we went to record about Cambrian Photos up in North Wales. Sarah there has got a absolute Aladdin's. Have you never been up there?
I've never been there. You've talked about it many times, and I'd love to go.
A wonderful place, full of old stuff, loads of it. And so if you're interested in looking for Praktica lenses or legacy lenses of any sort, take a look at her website and other places, of course. There's loads of them. eBay's a great place for stuff.
And the great thing actually about buying vintage lenses is they're not very expensive. Anywhere between sort of, I've seen stuff, I've been looking a little bit over the last couple of days, between sort of 15, 20 quid and 50, 60 quid most. And and it's great to experiment that way, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how how this thing has kind of come back. In terms of people love film now. People love vintage lenses, and they're just exploring photography more. I think that's wonderful. I'd love to do a bit more of it myself. Yes. Gemma bought me a lovely Christmas present actually, which was a twin lens. Remember them? It's at home as well now. It's not a Rolleiflex, but it's a twin lens film camera.
Right.
Lovely. And it's basically a 3D film camera, but from about 1958. And I need to learn how to use it.
Oh, it works then. We don't know.
Oh yeah, it works. She got it from a proper antique shop.
What a very thoughtful gift.
Yeah, it was lovely, really lovely. I loved it. I love it.
I got socks. Right. Time for our. Well, it's not so much an interview today, is it? As Ask Andreas.
Ask Andreas, the man of the moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're lucky every 6 months or so to have Andreas on from Fujifilm, who's a real in himself product knowledge base, both for what's been, what's announced, and what's coming. Now, we split this into 2 parts across 2 weeks. Honestly, though, we could have probably run this for weeks and weeks. Suffice to say, we'll have Andreas back on again after this. This time, Kev did the question bit from Bunker Malmesbury, and he starts with finding out how things have been over the last few months in particular, with obviously new lockdowns and new challenges.
So professionally, lockdown, I mean, it's not without its challenges. Obviously, a lot of the things that we would have loved to have done, workshops, so like events in store, obviously trade events like photography show, it's had a huge impact. But trying to be that annoying positive person, obviously it's meant that we have to rethink of all the other things that we can do. So producing content and sort of like the videos under sort of like difficult circumstances, engaging more on social media, a few competitions, creating contents to encourage people to take more pictures, sort their pictures, print their pictures, etc. So yeah, professionally it's been rubbish, but we have to move forward and work with the cards that we're dealt, as it were. So yeah, I'm very proud of my team and everything that they've done over the past 10 months now, I suppose.
Yeah, I was reading this morning. It's a year today. It's the 1 year anniversary of the first case being found in the UK.
Yeah, so that's a great anniversary.
Yeah, happy COVID day. It's very fortuitous that we've got you on the show today, Andreas, because, surprise, surprise, not that we set this up or anything, there was a whole raft of new Fujifilm announcements last week on the 27th, I think, Wednesday the 27th of January 2021, for those who are listening in the future. So we've got a whole lot of questions to go through, but before we do that, do you just want to quickly go through those new announcements, because there was quite a few of them?
Yeah, I mean, starting with X series, we've got XE4, which is the latest iteration of our XE line, which is the small, compact rangefinder style interchangeable lens camera. And we've designed it slightly differently and taken the ethos from X100V design. So very, very clean, sharp edges, minimalistic on the back. So we're trying to, where possible, make an interchangeable lens X100V. Obviously, there are some sacrifices that when you do that sort of thing. So it's not a hybrid OVF, it's not a weather sealed construction, etc. But I think the designers in Japan have really nailed it in terms of the styling, the size, the shape, and then partnering that really, really small compact X series. We announced a new XF 27mm. So one of the frustrations with the previous model was the lack of an aperture ring. And so we've added that. Obviously, it's meant that the focus ring is slightly smaller, but also we've added weather resistance like we have done with most of our modern XF lenses. And then finally on X series, we announced a 70-300 zoom lens. So something that sits in between the 55-200 and the 100-400. I know you've switched off now, Kevin, because I'm talking about zoom lenses, but there is a whole load of people that love, they're very versatile, very compact zoom lenses. And this 70-300 will be high up on their shopping list. Weather resistant construction, compatible with teleconverters. So for a very affordable price, you can have almost a 900mm equivalent lens. But we didn't stop at just new products. We also announced some new firmware, which actually slipped under the radar. So X100V gets an update, which allows the ND filter to be used for video as well. Adds X webcam compatibility and will improve the hybrid OVF EVF. XT30 has been updated to include the X webcam software, and X Pro 3 has had some minor tweaks as well to the OVF EVF. And that was, in summary, everything that we did from an X series perspective. And then just to shake things up, we announced a GFX 100S, which, depending on how you look at it, is either all the size of the GFX 50S, so slightly smaller though, because it doesn't have the humpback on the back, but shrunk down. So we've either, depending on your perspective, upgraded the 50S to include a 100 megapixel sensor and the phase detection pixels and everything that goes with it, and a new battery, or we've downsized the GFX 100 to a smaller body with the same 100 megapixel sensor, IBIS. So whichever camp you want to sit in, the 100S is a huge deal for us. Should be available from March. And then we announced officially the GF 80mm, which we teased about a year ago at the last X Summit that we were developing. And it's just a very stunning portrait lens for those people that want the creamiest, smoothest, and all the other superlatives when we describe bokeh. So that's it. Just a really quiet week for us.
And the other thing about the X100V firmware update, which I'm really excited about, is that you can now use the built-in teleconverter with RAW as well. So you can get a RAW and a JPEG from that, which is a very, very cool, really cool update. And that came under the radar, and I really appreciated that. That's all phenomenal stuff. And when you think about the GFX, was it 4 years ago, 4 years ago, that they announced the original 50S, and now look where they are with the 100S. Incredible.
4 years this month. So while it was announced at Photokina September 2016, we had our event 19th of January to announce it to the world. Then it was available about 4 weeks later. So yeah, 4 years rather to the month that the GFX 50S came out. So we've come a long way. Obviously, we had the 50S. 18 months later, we had the 50R. Just under, I think it was about 10 months later, the 100 came out. Last June, we announced loads of firmware updates for the 100 and the 50S, basically revamping the cameras and as good as just giving them a massive update. We announced pixel shift in November for the GFX 100. So it's good to see this new camera come along, because it just reinvigorates the range, and everyone starts talking about the GFX again, and sees the lenses and all of that. So we're really proud of what the product planning team in Japan have been able to achieve in such a short time.
Okay, let's crack on with some questions, shall we? So the first one, I'm going to say the dreaded letters H and X in a second, is from Stephen Johnson. And he says, I'm going to say the bad words, any news on a XH2. The only reason I ask is that as much as I enjoy the XT line, I love the bigger grips of the XH1. And as much as the sensor on the XH1 would be fine, I want to have the autofocus capability of the newer models. I've been looking at other brands for this reason. The XS10 isn't what I'm looking for, so I'm hoping that the bigger grip will be utilized again soon, hopefully this year.
Yeah, I think that everyone wants everything as soon as they can have it. And the good thing is our management have never been shy about not teasing, but explaining about how things work. And that's what gives me great pride in things like the X Summit, when the actual people talking aren't sort of like trained media personalities or anything like that. They are the people in charge of the product. So going back to the question in hand, I think it was last April or May, our general manager of electronic imaging at the time basically said, we will develop an XH2. So obviously that's not something we've forgotten about, but we need to wait for a leap in technology to do it. Now, if you read between the lines, what that means is we need to wait for a new sensor and processor to come out. Can I give any more information about when it will come out? No. You just have the assurances from our head honcho that it will be coming out and it will be worked on.
And I guess now that the XE4 has been announced and is coming soon, that's probably the last of the living cameras with the fourth generation sensor. So presumably that sensor is coming to the end of its line anyway.
If you think about how we build our range and things like that, obviously the XT3 was the first, then we had the XT30, X Pro 3, then the X100V, then the XT4 was probably a bit of a curveball versus traditional stance. But you could argue that XT4 came out, basically upgraded some of the stuff from XT3 in terms of battery, shutter durability, quietness, etc. As a stopgap, maybe. But yeah, now we've got the XE4. There isn't really another product, and obviously the XS10 as well, which was new to our range. There aren't really any more derivations of fourth generation X-Trans and X processor 4 that we can really do. So yeah, I would envisage the next camera we launch with the new sensor and processor. What that might be, what that might be called, I do not know.
Okay, Darren Lingefelt wants to know, now you've announced the GF80 1.7 already, but he really wants to know whether the price tag will be higher than the 110 f2. And I know you've announced the prices now, but anything to say on the GF80 1.7?
So obviously we announced this on Wednesday 27th. UK price is 2099, Euro price is 2299, and the US price is 2299. So not knowing where Darren is based, I think that gives us enough currencies to hopefully answer that question. But slightly smaller in terms of the size. It's so shorter and stubbier, and slightly cheaper than the 110 f2 as well.
Okay, Mark Hall says, does Fujifilm possibly have any plans to do an updated version of the TCL WCL that could possibly make them smaller? Mostly speaking about the TCL. I love using it, but it feels so huge. Now, the TCL and the WCL were updated to version 2 a few years ago, weren't they? Yeah,
optically, it was exactly the same. We sort of like added the automatic not acknowledgement, the fact that the camera recognized the TCL and the WCL on it. I'll be frank, and it's not something that I'm aware of in terms of any plans to update those.
I would think perhaps now that the X100V can shoot RAW with the built-in teleconverter, might even be a little bit further down on their plans. Who knows? Don't really know.
Who knows? As I said, Kevin, it's not something that I've ever been privy to in terms of update to the accessories. We probably don't discuss accessories as much as we should during product meetings, but it's never something that's cropped up. And that's actually, I'll be honest, the first time that I've ever been asked in my 5 years as marketing manager whether or not there's a WCL or TCL update, even though I believe they're probably about 10 years old.
Just realised, for those that don't understand what the TCL and WCL is, we're not talking about some random American radio station. We're talking about the wide-angle conversion lens and the teleconversion lens for the X100 range, and I think also for the X70.
I believe some put it on the X70, but it was never officially designed to be used on that camera, no.
Alan Brinkley says, how is the decision made when it comes to which camera models get substantial updates? The X-T3 is now on par with the X-T4 in many areas due to its recent update. So will that be the last update, regardless if any future ones were even possible?
There are many factors that go into deciding what firmware update comes. And as it's been mentioned before, obviously, development of updates is specific to each camera model. So even though things might start life with the same sensor and processor, because the hardware inside might be different, there are differences in the firmware. So ultimately, it comes down to a commercial decision, as well as a physical time decision in terms of engineers, what they have. It isn't fixed as in saying, right, okay, this product has a 3-year life cycle, and every year we will give it a firmware update, because we almost don't know. Because as you can see, what we launched the X-T3, that camera was out for about a year, and then we realized actually we can add more things to it. So we did with the X Pro 3. Then we tweaked the autofocus even more with the X-T4, and then the designers have gone, right, okay, one, how many X-T3s have we got out there? So in terms of the loyal customer base, right, how long will the X-T3 continue to be sold for? So that those sorts of commercial understandings about, it's not just simply we can do it, therefore we must do it, because we need to understand that we are also a commercial enterprise that needs to sell cameras as well. I begrudge people saying, well, they haven't done X, Y, Z because they want to sell more of the other model. It's not always as simple as that. It is very, very complicated when it comes to that. And it's not as clear cut as saying this is what's going to happen in every 9 months. It's going to get an update, et cetera, et cetera. I think what's good to see is the fact that X100V has just got the ND filter to be used for video that we said. And that was feedback that we had from the launch. Why can't it be? And the guys go, actually, we didn't get round to doing it at the time. Now, they then have to slot in when that firmware update would happen between development of new cameras and other things. So you think to yourself, X-T4, XS10, XE4, GFX 100S, all of those cameras also had to be developed. So it's not just as simple as a copy-paste job. So, yeah.
Ali Shadpour, all he says, with a big question mark at the end, is X80.
Yeah, I'd love one as well. I'll be second in the queue after Kevin.
I said the other day on the Facebook group that the XE4 is such a minimalistic looking camera. It's beautiful, and I'm going to get one of them, and I'm just going to bolt a 18mm lens to it, scratch out the XE4, and just put X80 on it.
Yeah, I think, yeah. If you do that, you could probably start selling them like that.
Yeah, and in all seriousness, you know, it is a little bit of a niche camera. Was a niche camera, and I think everybody probably understands the reasons why Fujifilm haven't really gone down that route now.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people forget, when the X70 was launched in 2016, it didn't take the world by storm. A few people got it and understood what it was about, but obviously it was announced at the same time as X Pro 2, I believe. Yeah. And everyone was like, why are you using an old sensor and processor on? Anyway, and then we had the huge earthquake, which decimated the supply of sensors. And we had to take the very, very tough decision which cameras to prioritize. And at the time, it was decided to prioritize, I think it was X100T and XT1s, because for the first 6 months of its life, the X70 just it just didn't take the world by storm. It just wasn't a commercial success.
Yeah, it did come in under the radar, released on the same day as the X Pro 2.
Yeah, completely. A lot of people just overlooked it. 600 quid or whatever it was at the time for a fixed lens camera with an old sensor. What are they playing at? Who knows what they were thinking? And it's, I don't want to say cult following, but over time, people have come to appreciate more what that camera offers. Now, if we go to the money men and the accountants in the product planning team and say, right, okay, you know that camera that we developed and was a bit of a flop, can we now create a replacement for it? Because loads of people love the idea. So was it something that we launched before its time? maybe. Is the popularity of it because people can't have it? I don't know.
Okay, Spiros Christofi says...
Spiros.
Okay, sorry, Spiros. Yeah, probably the worst person in the world to get that wrong with. He says, number one, 2 questions. Can the repair center convert a camera to an infrared or monochrome on demand? And the second question is, in your experience, was there any difference in the quantity of cameras returned to the repair center from the XT2, which was made in Japan, and the XT3, which was made in China?
The only company I can think of off the top of my head, and apologies for the others, if you're out there, is a company called ACS in Norfolk. Mm-hmm. They do infrared conversions, and they've done everything from X series all the way up to GFX cameras. But I don't know about monochrome.
Okay, and the second part was, is there any perceivable difference essentially between the cameras that are made in Japan and the cameras that are made in China?
They're both our factories. They have exactly the same quality control standards. They both use parts from different parts of the world. There is this made in Japan, this aura around this made in Japan. I personally believe is a bit of a old wives' tale. I think 20 years ago, maybe, but which country is your phone made in? And I suppose if it's probably going to be China or one of the other Asian countries, definitely not Japan. So yeah, that's probably the consumer electronics device that we all use that probably takes the most beating in terms of constantly on and things like that. So it's one of those things that I think is nice to have, not actually makes any tangible difference.
All right, and a question from Joanne McIntyre, and I think you're probably expecting this type of question. She says, is there any plans on updating new versions of the following lenses, 23 1.4, 35 1.4, and the 56 1.2? These are feeling sluggish now, and not on par in terms of speed with the weather-resisted versions.
Fair question. And as always, when it comes to, are you working on this? Can you tell us about that? It's always a nightmare because I can't discuss future product releases that haven't been announced already. So it's always a struggle to answer this sort of question. If I was a consumer, professional, Fujifilm fan, whatever, hobbyist, whatever we go by nowadays, I would take great comfort in seeing the 10-24 recently being updated to weather resistance and dedicated aperturing. The XF 27mm being renewed, as it were. So that's all I would say about that topic. While I would just take comfort knowing that lenses are being renewed.
Okay, right. So now the next question is from, and I'm almost definitely going to get this wrong, Abhishek Sekawat. I'm really sorry, Abhishek, if I've murdered your name, but very good questions. And the first one, he's very excited to ask this question, was about the GFX 100S, and is there any rumors about it? And of course, it's been announced now, so that's fine. But he does have a second part of the question, which is interesting. And he says, has Fujifilm opened up its lens protocols to third-party manufacturers? And if so, is Andreas aware of any brands' plans to make lenses for X or GFX mounts?
So I think someone did recently make a lens for the GFX system. And then obviously we've had the likes of Viltrox announce X-mount lenses. Yeah, I think that this all stems back from sort of like a war of words almost from the likes of ourselves saying we feel we've got every single lens we need and we make them better. And then other brands going, oh, we don't have the lens protocols and stuff like that. I believe those sorts of feelings are being relaxed internally, but we're not privy to know what products are being announced by any third parties. So if someone releases a new flash gun, we don't get told beforehand, for example. You almost like release the protocols and then so be it. Someone can make something or they can just sit on them for months. So it's a bit of a nothing answer, but I believe that the lens protocols are being shared with companies that request it, to my knowledge, but we don't know what will be announced by those third parties.
I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with the GFX mount, especially now that the GFX 100S is out. And of course, that brings large format sensors to the masses, well, I mean, it's much more affordable. I think we'll see a lot of people take that camera up, and who knows, maybe third-party lenses will come to the fore.
I think what tends to happen, Kevin, is the camera gains a certain popularity, and then you can see that from the number of adapters that are made. And GFX adapters has sort of like almost surpassed the number of X series adapters available. So it's always interesting to see from that side of things. And then third parties start thinking, oh, actually, seeing as the popularity of the adapters is the mount must be growing in popularity, let's look at dedicated lenses. And you see people adapting other lenses that they've made for other brands first, and then they start looking at maybe dedicated. Because, again, you have to think commercially. It's very expensive to make one lens for just one camera fit. That lens ideally needs to work across 3 or 4 different manufacturers and change that fitting.
Our thanks to Andreas Georghiades, as ever, not just for answering your questions, but for the unswerving support that he's given this show. I've personally been having a few chats over the last few months with him, and a couple of occasions we've had the what sort of event shall we do when this is done conversation. So very excited to be looking ahead to something in, who knows, the not too distant future. And if you like your interviews, and of course that's an important part of this show too, coming up, Kev has been working on some biggies. Say no more, but watch this space, hint, hint. I spoke with Jane Odell, who'll be featuring soon, who's enjoyed some amazing success of late with in the equine world, a fellowship at the RPS, and a wonderful story of how one of the biggest trainers one day tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Do you fancy being our stables documentary photographer?" And of course, next week it's part 2 of Ask Andreas. When you have finished here, and only when you've finished, on my other podcast, Photography Daily, today, a giant from the 7 agency, Ed Cashy, talking about a story he actually shot 12, nearly 13 years ago. A very personal study of life called The Sandwich Generation.
As most photojournalists and documentarians, I'm not used to looking at myself or my own home in this case. And I cannot tell you how the riches and the discoveries I made that have made me not only a better person, but I believe a better photographer, a better documentarian.
And on Wednesday, commercial wildlife and environmentalist photographer George Logan takes us to Africa on his important assignments with the Born Free Foundation to help save the lions from what is possible extinction by the middle of this century.
There are statistics for everything, but in the early 1900s, they reckon there were 500,000 lions, and we're down to 20,000 now.
That's over on Photography Daily this week. Kev, before we get back to questions, the thing about the vintage lenses and the adapters, etc. You're correct. Kev's correcting himself first. Here's a correction. So it wasn't Miticon or whatever it was you said.
No, because Miticon, of course, is lens. The word I meant was Kipon.
Kipon, okay.
Kipon is the manufacturer of the adapters. Yeah, Kipon.
And the one I've got here, just so you know, I went up to the house and grabbed it for you. It's Fotasy, Fotasy, CY to FX. And I've looked it up. And that is... Well, they're not very expensive. I found one here for 23 quid. There we go. So
I also looked up the camera that Gemma bought me.
Oh, right.
Which is a Virgin Exa Stereo 3D film camera.
Right, okay. How much is that worth?
Not a lot. Not too much.
Well, is it worth more than socks?
Yeah.
Okay.
If anybody knows how to use these things, then let me know.
Yeah, going on a course. Right, back to your book of the week coming up soon. What is the book of the week before?
The book of the week is do you know what cuore valato means?
It's strawberry ice cream in Italiano.
No? They won't know this, but you know exactly what it is because we just had this conversation and we've had to delete it all out because I messed it right up.
Yeah,
but it means veiled heart.
Give the secrets away. Veiled heart, yes. Well, yeah. I didn't want to come across as a smart aleck then and say it means veiled heart, Kev.
Cuore valato.
Well, it's a lovely language, Italian, isn't it? Beautiful. Oh, it's a beautiful language. No wonder they call it the most... Is it called the most romantic language in the world? I think it is, isn't it? I went to a wedding. A wedding? Do you remember those? 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, and the speeches were in English and Italian. and I had to do a photo film. I had no idea what they were saying, but I was thinking I'll just leave all the Italian in. That's fine for me. Just sounds great. So that's book of the week. Let's get back to your questions. Oh yes, it was not exactly a complaint, but you're quite correct about this. Salman Shaf, you talked about everything. Oh yes, this is to do with last week's episode where we said creating a YouTube channel for your photography in 2021. Well, you talked about everything else, but how to create a YouTube channel for photography with smiley face. So I think there's a bit of humour in it, and you're quite correct actually. But I was rather hoping that the sort of subtle nature of the whole thing, talking about YouTube, was kind of like was enveloped by the how to create your own YouTube thing. But we didn't really do a belt and braces how to. No, we didn't. You are absolutely right. So should we put that right, Kev, with how to get yourself a YouTube channel? It's quite a large. I mean, it's a whole program in itself, probably, but it's essentially just sign up for a YouTube channel and start making films.
Brilliant.
That is it. So get yourself a Google account, and then you've got your YouTube channel. Upload your films, and away you go. Job
You're such an educator.
done. I know. I like to pride myself in my workshops. But it's quite a subject, though, isn't it? If you did really want to get involved in how to create a YouTube channel, that's the first bit. But making films, I mean, that's a whole, Where would you start, Kev? Do you remember making your first YouTube film?
Oh, yeah. I don't remember making it, but it's on there. It's about 8 years ago. I stuck something up, a photo film, or I can't remember, or me talking about, it might be in the X100S. I really can't remember, but it's still up there. It's got hundreds of thousands of views, and it's absolutely bloody awful. Absolutely terrible. The audio is terrible. I filmed it with my nose at the front of the camera. It's revolting. I can't watch it anymore. But yeah, so that was, and one day I remember about 2 years later, I remember getting this money just dropped into my bank account, and I was like, and it came from Google. I was like, well, I don't understand that. Where's that come from? And then I figured out it'd come from YouTube. So what had happened was I'd gone over the threshold for being able to earn money. So you do need, I think you need 1,000 followers on your YouTube channel, and you also need to have a certain amount of hours listening, which sounds like I can't remember the exact number, but it's something like 30,000 hours in a year, which sounds like a lot, but it's not when you consider how much time people spend on YouTube. 30,000 hours is not a lot. So you do need a couple of parameters in order to kind of make it a money-making exercise.
The algorithm thing changes so often, doesn't it? One year people are saying make long films because you want to keep people there for the hours, and other times they're saying no, make them slightly shorter so that people finish the film, because that was always the thing, wasn't it? If people don't finish the film, if they only watch maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes of it, don't finish the film, that's not good for you. That doesn't. YouTube doesn't see you as somebody who's making particularly engaging content. So, what do you aim for? Do you aim for making shorter films now, or what is there a sort of basic length that you're thinking about with your films?
Honestly, I've given up thinking too hard about it. The important thing is that you make stuff that you enjoy making. Don't make it for other people to enjoy. If you don't enjoy making it, then there's no point. Don't force it. You'll read millions of articles about you need to create a niche for yourself, or a niche, as they would say across the pond. And I suppose I went down that route with the Fujifilm tech stuff, and in fairness, they are my biggest viewed videos. But I've put all kinds of stuff up there. I've recently started putting old legacy films that I made years ago, just as a kind of filler. I've done Q&As, I've done book reviews. Whatever I enjoy doing, essentially, is what I do.
When you said filler, why did you feel the need to put something up as a filler?
Because I've got nothing new. I've got nothing.
Right. Well, why not just leave it?
Got no pictures, and well, no, that's probably the worst thing you can do if you really want your YouTube channel to kind of be relatively successful. You do need to be pretty proactive in content.
Feed the machine. I know, but I just looked it up actually to make sure the viewing hours that you need is 4,000 hours. I subscribe to a few channels that from photographers. Is his name Nick Rice? I think so. He makes these beautiful, really short videos, and I think he's a Fujifilm user. I'm pretty sure he is, and he makes these beautiful videos. They can be about anything. Sometimes I think one of the recent ones was about clearing out his father's workshop, and it was just so beautifully shot. Very, very simple narrative on it. I suppose sometimes the simplest things you think don't take long to edit, but they can do once you've done your grading and stuff. But I can tell that he enjoys making them. That it's right up his street, and he's not trying to do anything like, right, let's do a tutorial for you because I know that's going to get me views. He's making stuff that he honestly thoroughly enjoys by the looks.
You mean there's no slow-mo making a coffee at the beginning?
No.
No. Then nobody will watch it.
Well, it depends if you want thousands of views or...
Does he say he's super excited by the video?
No, he doesn't say he's super excited.
He's missing out. He's doing it all wrong.
Yeah, try and avoid the cliches. I'm super excited today. This is awesome.
But to go back to the point about, I subscribe to some wonderful filmmakers as well, but Vimeo is really where I go for my kind of artist stuff. But the point about feeding the monster is relevant because if you think about, let's just say you've got, BT TV, or you've got Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever, and there was never anything new on there, you'd eventually stop looking, you'd stop checking, you'd stop being interested in it. Yeah. So, and that's YouTube's point of view as well, which makes perfect sense to me. If they're going to promote people who are, putting content out there regularly. So, it's kind of updating regularly. If you don't, that doesn't mean you can't be successful. I mean, I subscribe to one channel. I think the last video was about 4 years ago. And I still subscribe on the hope that he'll make another one day because the stuff's just beautiful. And I think I cannot remember what it was, but I'll try and find it for the show notes. But it's him and his girlfriend. They just go on a trip to Venice or something like that, and it's the most wonderfully shot little film. But yeah, nothing since, But that's got like 2.5 million views.
Wow. Yeah. The one that Nick Rice. It is Nick Rice film. And I like the description. I'm a mediocre guy trying to be better than average. 53 videos, 824 subscribers. And I really like his stuff. Yeah. But there we go.
There you go.
Is that enough about opening a YouTube channel?
Don't forget the coffee.
Coffee beans, definitely.
Coffee beans, the slow-mos.
One wheel.
And in fairness, we're being churlish, of course, but there are some amazing things on there. You can learn a lot by looking at other people's channels. That thing about the niche or niche is important, but you're going to be hard pushed to find a niche for yourself right now. So do what you enjoy. Look at what the others. There's one that me and Neale, whatever, talk about occasionally called Ali Abdul.
Oh yes,
I love that name, Ali Abdul.
Yes, he's very good.
He's phenomenally good. I mean, I think some people might find him a little bit annoying, but I think his camera skills are amazing, or his editing and production skills are brilliant. It's nothing fancy. It's usually him talking about his desk setup or how he's read 6 books in a day and things like that. It's usually about kind of productivity. But he has gone in 18 months from 0 to nearly 2 million subscribers.
Amazing. He's earning a living from that now, isn't he? Definitely.
He's very good. Yeah, very, very good. So, keep an eye on those kind of people. Matt Devalia as well. Yeah. I love his stuff. His is very, very simple. Yeah.
Minimalist. The minimalism stuff that he does, doesn't he?
He's a minimalist. Minimalist.
There is a guy. Have you heard of Gerald Undone?
Yes.
Gerald Undone. That one. I just sing his jingle all day long. Very, very good. I know he is a reviewer. Okay, he reviews kit, but he does it in a really good, not too techie, which is perfect for me. He's very good. Gerald Undone, definitely would recommend him if you want to come back in for the photography stuff. Right, shall we go for Book of the Week? Book of the Week.
Book of the Week. Now, do you know what Cuero Veleto means?
Haven't we been down this one before?
Yeah, we have.
Is it Italian? Is it Italian for I love butterscotch ice cream, Kev?
This is a new addition to my collection, and it's up there in the top 5 of my happy places to be when it comes to photo books.
Okay.
No, I have to tell you where it came from because it's very, very rare. But as far as I'm aware, it's still potential to get it. I got it from photobookstore.co.uk, which is a place that has a lot of good photo books, and it's made by a photographer as well. Now, Cuero Velato is, I'm just going to read the synopsis because it's hard to describe it. The photo book represents the synthesis of years of reflection on Oriental art and culture, culminating in a long journey to Japan on the footsteps of Shodo calligraphy discipline. Through a ruthless and independent eye, this story seeks to delve into the depths of a culture, exposing the most remote corners of things in homage to Shinto animism that more than anything represents the key to these places. Cuero Velato has a chiasmus structure. What's chiasmus mean?
I know this. Read in 2 directions, Kev.
No, I understand.
Right.
Correct. Because
Okay.
it's one of those books you start at one end and you can start at the other end as well.
Okay.
That chiasmus structure, I like that. I'm going to write that down. Can be read in 2 directions, starting also from the end, as in the Japanese way.
Right.
It tries to discover a world, to understand it using its own categories, a low profile, almost subdued. To discover this world, so the author is Valentino Barachini.
Right.
Barachini celebrates it and at the same time questions it, but its deep core, the heart, finally remains veiled away. As far as I can tell, there's only one of these left. So get there quick, photobookstore.co.uk.
Right.
Perhaps it's available elsewhere as well. However, there's only 100 of them in existence.
Wow.
So,
Blimey.
yes, it's one of 100 and it's signed and it is the most delicate of things. So before you even, it comes in a nice little box, and before you get to the book, you have this piece of rice paper. It's kind of beautiful with Japanese art on it. Very, very delicate. So I'm opening that up now. And inside is the signature and a little description from Valentino himself with some prints and some fold-out artwork. It's the most stunning thing. It is. There is English translations to the Italian text as well.
Yeah. Tell me you're actually using white gloves while you look at it. This sounds like the sort of thing that should be in a museum, never touched.
It's just superb. And the photography is, of course, it's all things Japanese. So it ranges from photos of flowers to Shinto warriors to calligraphy to even to telegraph poles, that kind of stuff. Beautifully photographed. And that's just in the little sheathed up pamphlet that comes with it. Now, the book itself is A5 softback, but nice and heavy, and it has this lovely mirrored cover, both ends, both sides, because as you said, you can start from the front to back. So I'm looking at the front of the book now, but actually I'm looking at myself. It's a reflection.
Oh, wow.
Which is very interesting. And inside the book, I'm turning to a particular page now, very difficult, I'm being very careful. And there's another little folder, beautiful, beautiful black and white with all of the film scratches and everything like that of presumably a fisherman on the coast. I'm folding that back up because it's very delicate. And then all of the page. I mean, it's almost impossible to describe this book, and I always find a challenge when I'm talking about the photography books. But it's it's one of those ones where the photography is beyond photography. It's the whole collection. The book itself is an art piece. It's not just a series of pictures. You can't just look at one picture and think, oh, that's beautiful, because they are, of course. But you look at the way that some of the images are torn, you look at the way they fold out, you look at the flow of the book and the structure of it and the feel of it and the smell of it, and everything about this book is just beautiful.
How did you know about this book?
How do I know about this book? I stumbled across it. Now, I don't know where. I did buy 2 books at the same time, so maybe I was looking for the other one and found this one. So no, I don't. I honestly don't know. It's not somebody I'd ever come across.
It's very
before.
specialist.
It is a very specialist book. Not overly expensive though. It's 3 figures.
God. Kev,
I'm in enough trouble with the horse.
Horses, three-figure books that you're buying. You've never had it so good.
Well, this is what Gemma did to me when we were talking about the horse. She was like, "You can't talk to me about a horse. How many books have you bought? You keep going on the FujiCast about how many books you bought, and you're extra 100V and all this and all that, blah blah."
She does have.
And she's
point.
right. Yeah, she's absolutely right.
Yeah,
fairness to her.
You got rid of the chickens, all right? Though they went, but you just
chickens went.
The horses.
Well, chickens never existed. So anyway, but the book itself, honestly, is, as I said, it's more than a book. It's absolutely beautiful.
I'm still not sure that we've discussed any of the pictures within it.
Correct. And I believe, looking at the little information I have on the front, the little book, the little piece of paper. It says it's got the signature. It's got a whole load of Italian text, and it's got the signature, and then it says copia number, and then 1. So I've got number 1 over 100.
Oh, wow, Kev!
Very interesting.
And it's signed.
Unless it's the 7.
Yeah, maybe lucky number, of course.
I think that's 1.
Italy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful. So really beautiful. It's not. And the pictures I can't. The pictures themselves, as I kind of delve in, you end up seeing some of them are really faded. It's not all black and white.
What are they of, Kev? What are the pictures of? That's what.
Well, it's essentially of Japan.
Right. Okay.
Japanese culture, Japanese structures.
Right.
There's a lot of kind of very traditional Japanese architecture in there. But then, for example, there's some kind of tear sheets from a waterfall that he's taken, and this is at Fukuroda, which obviously is in Japan. And then there's the big trees at Matsushima. I'm fairly sure I went there when I went to Japan. And there's beaches and rocks, and it's what I love about it is that there's great care and attention given to the book. But actually, the photos are clearly, chosen for a reason. But they've not been retouched within an inch of their lives. You've got the scratches, you've got the plates, you've got, in some cases, the reproduction of the photograph is ripped in half. So where the copy has come from. So, right. It's really wonderful. And like I says, you can start both ends, which is very traditionally Japanese. Curo Velato, Valentino Barachini, 2018 to 2019.
Wonderful. Blimey. Okay. And Kev thinks there's only one left in the world. You better snap it up quick.
Well, according to Photo Bookstore, there's only one left. Yeah. Yeah.
And you've got to sign. Well, they're all signed, probably, aren't they?
I think they're all signed. I think it's a run of 100.
Yeah.
And I presume they're all signed. So I'm just going to put my rice paper pamphlet back in. I'm refusing to call it a zine.
Well, while you're spending hundreds and hundreds of pounds on books and thousands more on horses yet to come, I did pick up a book myself this week from a friend of the show, Sean Tucker, Collection 4.
I saw that was out,
which is now out, it's and actually a lot of the quotes in here. Well, there's always quotes and pictures. That's what you get with philosophical Sean, isn't it? So in here, for example, you don't have to be paid to take photographs in order to call yourself a photographer. By definition, if you take photographs, you're already a legitimate photographer. One of the things I've grown to love about Sean's work, and particularly his collection books, which are essentially, I suppose, his wanderings each day, mainly in London, I think, is that you have this sort of well-curated observation of life, which sort of removes this notion that your pictures have to be somehow overtly, I don't know, Kev, overtly clever or overly humorous. These are pictures that, by themselves, as we say, wouldn't always win awards, but as a collective observation, they really show you how the photographer sees.
Yeah. Well, and I think I got collection 2. That was the only one I managed to get. Yeah. And it is brilliant. I love the design of his books as well.
I think there's still a few left. He is bringing out a book, by the way, more in tune with his philosophical thoughts about stuff and life, which will be really interesting. So that's coming out atop at some stage. Right, back to your questions. Adrian Muscat. Hello, Neale. Hello, Kev. Hope you're both well. I'm very new to the world of documentary wedding photography and was fortunate enough to recently land my first clients. Their wedding is March 2021. Now, he's in Canberra in Australia, so it will be going ahead. And so if it was March 2021 here, I'm doing the breathing in but not breathing out like car mechanics do, it probably wouldn't be happening, would it? Well, I don't know.
Won't be happening.
Who knows? And so I have planned to meet with them in the next week to go over the details of the wedding shoot. I'm sure you've both gone through the process of discussing the wedding shoot with clients, so I was wondering if you have any advice or specific questions that I should be asking them. Well, so you don't do a lot of meetings before the day, do you? Because of the way that you work, that it doesn't require you to. It probably requires you to have a Skype meeting or Zoom meeting where you need to turn up, at a time, and when the service is taking part, and when the dinner's being served, maybe when the first dance is due to happen. But apart from that, though, you don't need a lot of more information, do you?
I very rarely see the clients before the wedding, very rarely, and that includes Skype and Zoom and all that kind of stuff, although I suppose that change in the future. Very rarely. And it's not, I just don't really put it in front of them. I don't kind of use the language such as, we must get together, we must chat about the wedding and everything, because I just don't, personally for me, it's not important. So it doesn't matter what they look like, how they behave, whatever. I'm just going to take pictures of what happens. So that's kind of my take on it. And also those meetings and everything can take time. And if you're anal like me, I would add that to my bottom line and look at how much money per hour I'm making on the job. So it's all there.
I do meetings, but they used to be face-to-face here. You're right, actually. A face-to-face meeting where somebody comes to see you before a wedding day, when essentially you're doing sort of a documentary style gig, is not really necessary. So, but if they do come here, and they're very welcome to, what I like to turn it into is an opportunity to look at books and upsell. So I know that sounds a bit cold and a bit commercial, but I'm kind of along the same lines as you here, Kev. Time is money, and really on the day, we're there to show them their day, not necessarily be the ringmaster for their day. So it's a very different style of shoot. But if you are going to be doing things like family shots, and this is a reason why I do chat to people beforehand, because I do a lot more family shots I know than you do, Kev. I like to know, I like to have that bit organised. So go through who we're going to photograph and why, so we don't end up doing second cousins removed for a shot, or everybody starting with a letter T. So I try and that's a good opportunity to short circuit that. If we're going to get onto this, we've got this many shots and it looks like it's going to take 50 minutes to an hour and a half, then that's the time to say, wait a minute, do you want to be eating your expensive canapes that you bought, or do you want to be standing in a line? So that's a good opportunity. Some people, of course, like to use the meeting because you want to do a pre-wedding shoot. So that can be a good idea. And if you're using shots from pre-wedding shoot, try and if you can use one of those shots, put it in a frame and have people sign it. That can be a nice product in itself, actually. I used to do that a lot. So I don't do pre-wedding shoots these days, but when I did, I'd always make sure that I had a shot in a frame, or in a mount, rather large mount that people could sign, because that became a, guess what, product. So that's why I think you can use these pre-wedding meetings. They're the sort of things you could use them for.
Yeah. Or you could watch Netflix.
Kev. The customer experience with Kev.
No, you're dead right. And of course, for the clients that do want to meet me, and some of them do, make sure I'm not, like a serial killer or something, then of course I will. But generally I don't.
Yeah, okay. Right. I think we have got time for one more from the Facebook group. Remember to be sending your questions into the Facebook group, because as Kev says, they're dwindling a bit in there. It's nice. The email ones are going well, so keep sending those in too, to click at FujiCast.co.uk. But we've got time for a QQ from Facebook.
I think so. So this one's from Chris J. Guy. Well, no, that's a cool name as well, isn't it? Chris J. Guy. Yeah. He's from Australia. And he says, following on from another thread in the Facebook group, he shot a wedding with an X100F on the weekend. There's another Australian shooting weddings. Look, actually, I'm not going to answer his questions.
Go on.
I'm too jealous. And he goes on to say, normally he's got two X-T3s, but he decided to do it with just the X100, X100F, in fact. And he loved it. The size, the simplicity, all that kind of stuff was great. But then he says, in saying that, shooting with only one card slot scared the shit out of me.
I bet it did.
I can just imagine that in an Australian accent. Is it okay for professional wedding photographers to only use a single card slot? This was obviously standard practice 10 years ago. I'd love to permanently switch my wedding setup to an X100 and X-T3 with 56. Peace out, man.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? Yes, you can shoot it with a single card. I'd be very inclined, if you are shooting with single card, to be rotating those cards. Putting new ones in quite often. That's the only thing I would say. When I shot weddings with single cards, these cards will be changing all day long. I'm backing them up whenever I could as well. And that was quite handy actually, having assistant in those days, because that would be their job to make sure that the cards are okay. Everybody's, it's reading okay. It's not gone corrupt. Touch wood, I didn't have that situation. Now the only problem you can have with keeping. Not having a backup card in the camera is what happened to a second shooter of mine a couple of years ago that we have talked about, who had her card wallet stolen, and she was on a single card camera, which meant she had nothing from the day at all. So that is a consideration. Security of your cards. Never ever have your card wallet somewhere else, but on your person. Stick it down your pants if you need to, but it needs to be on your person.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that. The thing about I've shot several weddings with just a pair of X100s, and it's very liberating. It's beautiful. However, I now know that a lot of the insurance companies, let me say this now, if anybody is shooting weddings for a client professionally, they're paying you, you absolutely have to have insurance. If you do not have insurance, then get out of the industry. But that's like a lot of the insurance companies these days do insist you use cards with cameras with redundancy built in.
They do. You're right.
So just check your policies there. But yeah, it's fun. I love it. I would do it too. An X100 with two card slots. Now there's a thing.
Watch this space. I like the pregnant pause there, Kev. Anyway, that's
I say nothing.
I say nothing. That's it for this week. If you've liked this or any of the week's shows, thank you. If you can, of course, and you feel it's relevant, we'd love for you to leave a review. If you can share the episode on Twitter or Facebook, you are an absolute star, and let us know where you're sharing too, because we'd like to give those platforms a shout out. See you in the Facebook group for any questions that you have about today's show. Play nice, of course. We haven't mentioned them for a little while, but our mods, Steve and Pete, they're in there. Well, they're not. When I say mods, they're moderators, not mods as in wearing Parker jackets and riding on Italian Vespers. Although they might, I don't know. Please be sure if you're posting pictures to give a little context to why you popped them up, and send your questions in, as always, to click@fujicast.co.uk. If you want to buy the book of the week, tough, it's probably already gone. I don't know.
And also give us money on Patreon.
Kev, look, we really must talk about the way that you approach this thing. You make people feel special, then you ask for the money. But there we go.
Love you all, love you all, love you all.
That sort of stuff. Music from Blue Wednesday, supporting music from the incredible artlist.io. We will see you next week, cap in hand. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.